lockdowns are ending. It's end of 2021, beginning of 2022. And I think the pandemic, it got to us all and made us all wish for simpler times. And a form of that was my husband, at the time fiance, he's now my husband, was really reminiscing on one of his favorite things from when he was younger, and that was the Silent Hill franchise. And that was something that I was always fascinated by as I got into horror, but I had no way to play the game. I saw the film, the first film, and I liked it when I saw it when I was like 16. Watched it again recently. I'm not gonna get into it. The most affordable way to do it was to buy a used Xbox 360. It doesn't go for that crazy on eBay. It's an Xbox 360. It's kind of mid-tier of used gaming systems, I would say. I don't know. I'm not an Xbox girly. I'm a PlayStation girly. As I've gotten into video games post this whole experience, I don't understand Xbox. It confuses me, and it's the culture of Xbox also. It's not for me. I'm a PlayStation girly. I also don't understand Nintendo. It's not for me. Yeah, we did 2 from the get-go. I loved it. It's just beautiful. As someone who's not really about the mechanics of a game or the combat or the playing style, just to sit and watch someone else play Silent Hill 2, there's nothing like it. Like, it's just mwah. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, it cannot get better than this. It cannot get better than this. This is the best video game ever made. Oh boy, did I have something coming for me. We had 3 on deck, but my husband had always said, I love 4. I love 4. Like, I remember, like, in the first few weeks that we knew each other, he was telling me the plot of 4 because I didn't really know anything about Silent Hill other than like Pyramid Head and Rust, because again, I had seen the film. We decided we need to get a copy of 4 and we're gonna skip to 4 and then play 3. So I'm like, okay, how can you beat 2 at this point? I just fell in love with 4. I think it's my favorite video game ever. I know it's incredibly controversial. A lot of people love it. A lot of people hate it and like refuse to even consider it a Silent Hill game. And then there's people in the middle that are like, I like this about it, I don't like this about it, which that's valid. There are things to dislike about it, and I understand that. We'll get into that. 4 really made me fall in love with the entire series. I love all the games. I even love Homecoming and Downpour. I think they're all fun. I think they all have things going for them. In general, I hope that Silent Hill goes the Resident Evil route and they just keep remaking them. I don't know if that's gonna happen because I know people already have mixed feelings about 2, even though it hasn't come out yet, but I love to do this thing. I love media that is like really scary or just that you can take and make fun of. And Silent Hill is a franchise that you can do that with. It's so devastating and scary, but it's also so stupid. Like, James pulls a light bulb out of a can. Like, what? What's going on? Anyway, I needed an outlet for these memes, for these funnies that I was coming up with. So I think in the middle of playing 4, I created a Silent Hill meme Tumblr called Walter Sullivan, ha ha ha. I'm outing myself. This is the Walter Sullivan, ha 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 face reveal to my, I checked this morning, 69 followers. Writes itself. I started to notice though, because I became involved, at least on the side. I wasn't talking to people, but I was observing the Silent Hill fan base on Tumblr. And it seemed to be a lot of young women and young LGBTQ plus individuals. They seem to love 4. And in other communities on the internet, like, you know, survival horror Twitter, which I started to kind of observe as well, and then like your Reddits, there was a lot more negativity towards 4, and it did seem to be more male-based, the hatred. So I was like, this is interesting. It's fascinating. I don't like I have some theories that I'll get into, but I was like, okay, maybe it makes sense that me as a woman, why I like this game. But it was nice to see so much love, and I think after the fact, like I think in general, it's kind of turned around in years past. I think when we all were in lockdown, we could kind of understand Henry's psyche a little bit more. This is not definitive analysis and smart lore. This is just how I feel about the game. I'm gonna break it down. I'm gonna tell you what, when we get into Walter Sullivan, I'm gonna sound a little bit like the circumcision guy probably, But I promise that I'm not as militant or angry. But I feel very strongly about this game. I feel very strongly about Walter Sullivan. And yes, I do also feel very strongly about Henry Townsend, and I think we need to be nice to him. So let's get into it. Okay, so the basics before I start any breakdown. What the hell is Silent Hill 4 about? And why do some people not even consider it a Silent Hill game? So I'm gonna quote the wiki for the plot description. Silent Hill 4 follows Henry Townsend as he attempts to escape from his locked-down apartment. During the course of the game, Henry explores a series of supernatural worlds and finds himself in conflict with an undead serial killer named Walter Sullivan. Okay, so that's our basics. I didn't come up with that. That's the wiki. I wonder if the circumcision guy wrote that. I'm sorry to whoever did, because I doubt he did, because he's been kicked off that wiki. I think a lot of people really like the story, and that's what draws me to it. I think it's a very interesting story. I think the way the narrative plays out is very interesting, because essentially you play as Henry Townsend, you wake up in your apartment, you can't leave, the door is locked and barred, and it literally says don't go out, from Walter. He's cheeky, he's funny, he's silly. But Henry has no clue what's going on. Like, that's the only hint he has. He can't open his windows, he can't open his door, he can't yell for help, no one can hear him. And the only way he can get around is there's a hole shows up in the bathroom, and he can go to these different worlds that are very similar to the world around him. Henry's in Ashfield, rather than Silent Hill. So there's the Ashfield station, subway station that he goes to. There's a forest outside Silent Hill, so it is in Silent Hill. Everyone is like, it's not a Silent Hill game, but whatever. And then you go to my favorite, they call it Water Prison World. It's a giant cylindrical panopticon style prison. You go back to Ashfield and it's called Building World, but like different businesses and stuff that are like across from your apartment. And then the final level that is a main level is Apartment World, and it is just the apartment you live in, but you can actually go around outside and explore your neighbors and everything, which you can't do in the real world. But every time you come across a hole, you go back into your apartment and you kind of investigate. There's notes. The way the lore is dropped is very interesting. You get a diary from the former tenant, who is a journalist who's investigating Walter Sullivan. After that, there is a hospital level that kind of acts as the midpoint of the game, and then you go back and repeat all of the levels with the addition of a new character, so it kind of becomes a escort mission, which I know a lot of people feel strongly about, and I understand that. I'm not really going to talk about the gameplay, because that is a sore spot for a lot of people, and like, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's the most fun game to play ever, because it's not. I was playing it yesterday, and I was up a storm. It's not about the combat. I don't think there's a single Silent Hill game, except maybe Homecoming, where combat is like the fun part and the reason you're playing it. You're playing it for the story, you're playing it for the visuals, you're playing it for the lore. That's why I love Silent Hill 4. That's why I love Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2 isn't a fun game to play either. James can't do a lot. It just looks cool and the story is very compelling. That's the basics. I'm gonna start breaking it down into the characters, because that's more really what I want to talk about specifically. It's all about my boy Walter Sullivan, but I'm going to talk about some other ones too. This is a video made by a person who loves Silent Hill 4 dearly. I named my cats Walter and Eileen. I have a Walter Sullivan sticker on the back of my phone case. Like, I'm very serious about this game and I love it, so I don't think I'm going to convince anyone that hates it. This is just, if you want to hear an opinion of someone who loves this game, this is just how I feel about it. I want to talk about it, so this is really just for me. It's a way for me to express my love, and aspects of the game that I don't think are talked about, that is definitely going to be headcanon area. Let's start out with our boy Henry Townsend.
What's your name?
Henry. And you?
He is a big reason why a lot of people hate this game, because they find him incredibly bland as a protagonist, and I get it, okay? Coming off of James, who is one of the most nuanced and fascinating protagonists in fiction, probably. And then Heather in 3, who is just really fun and full of personality and has a very compelling background and arc throughout the whole game. I understand that coming off of Heather and into Henry, I'm sure people were like, what the hell is going on? What the hell is also Henry's favorite sentence to say, and we love him for it. I love Henry. I'm a big Henry defender. That's my boy. Like, look at him. He should grace the cover of Non-Threatening Boys magazine. There's Eileen. Eileen, say hello. Walter? Walter! I love you. Sorry about that. A lot of distractions. I started talking about Henry and the world's like, stop. You can't be a Henry truther. He's just a little guy. Like, he's the definition of what do they say on Twitter or X these days? He's my little blorbo. Like, he's a little guy. He is designed to be bland because you can project yourself onto him because it's as if you have stumbled into Walter Sullivan's world. But I think that his lack of backstory really allows people to project onto him. And that is also a reason why I think a lot of young women gravitate towards him, because he seems very innocent and, you know, he's just a guy. He's just a guy. Oh my god. Someone was climbing up that tapestry over there. Bad kitty. I shouldn't have named him after Walter Sullivan. He's just, he's very safe and you can turn him into whatever you want to turn him into, which I think for a Tumblr crowd, I say this as a former avid Tumblr girly and now I'm clearly in the shadows of Tumblr. It's like the antithesis of a Tumblr sexy man because they're like edgy and bad. He's like the opposite of that. My favorite thing that I think perfectly encapsulates the way people will just run with Henry and they don't know what to do with him because there's literally nothing there. There was a list of Silent Hill headcanons on AO3. My favorite one, no one else probably thinks this is funny. This killed my husband and I still think about it all the time. It was headcanons about like what it would be like if Henry was your significant other. I think they did all the Silent Hill protagonists. But one of the things was like, need something from the store? He'll go anytime or something like that. And that last year for my birthday, my husband got me a cake that said like, I got something from the store for you, referencing that. So I like to think about that poor Walmart boy that was like, he sure did get something from the store for whoever is getting this cake. To me, that's peak humor. I'm gonna find this headcanon. Yes, I understand the terms of service. I'm gonna find this. I think it might be this one. We're gonna find out. Okay, it's totally this one. So these are Harry Mason headcanons. We don't want that. We need, okay, it's a Harry fan. It's absolutely this because I remember the name of that Harry fanfic. Okay, here it is. It's chapter 3, Silent Hill headcanons and one-shots from Save the Best for Last. Thank you for your service, Save the Best for Last. You changed me as a person. Here we are. Henry, he'll ask you if it's something he did. If it's a yes, if it's a yes or a no, so whatever you say, he'll want to know if there's anything he can do to make you feel better. He has quite a few photo albums and scrapbooks that he'll share with you. He'll share his favorite ones, almost everyone, but his favorite ones are the ones with you. See, this is like so Tumblr baby girl blorbo. Like, I love Henry Townsend. Here we go. Oh no, wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. Loves taking you to antique stores. They're one of his favorite places to go if he's ever feeling negative, which, if we're to judge off of him in the game, always. Okay, here it is. This is the moment. Need anything from the store? He'll get it for you right away. Let's just finish this off because we're here. Hugs and cuddles, of course. He's a huge fan of cuddling. If you want to be left alone, that's totally fine. He'll check up on you to see if you're feeling any better. If you want to go somewhere, he'll let you decide where you want to go. Movies, dinner date, or just getting ice cream. We got anything else? Oh, I don't need James. This person really likes Harry Mason, and I get it. Like, it's all Harry. Dilfcore. Oh, Harry Mason x Ethan Winters relationship oh no, I can't do this. Henry Townsend is perfect fanfiction fodder because you can just project any headcanon you want onto him. And we love him for that. He's a silly little guy. He's very soft-spoken, doesn't know how to talk to people.
From next door. What are you doing here?
I don't know where to start.
I am a pro Henry Townsend individual. What is Walter doing? Walter! So now it's time to get into the meat of this situation. And the reason why I wanted to make this video Walter Sullivan. I love a villain. I think Walter is the most compelling villain, certainly in gaming history, that I've come across, let alone perhaps in horror in general. I find him incredible in so many ways. He is the heart of this story. It would have zero impact if he was not in it. It is his story. We're just experiencing it through Henry. We don't actually see adult Walter until about halfway through the game, but his presence is felt everywhere. Literally, he's written on the door. He's the one that's keeping you in your house, and we slowly get little pieces of his backstory before we even know who he is. So I'm just gonna go into his background based on like what the developers have said. I got a lot of this from the Silent Hill wiki. Have to shout them out because without them I wouldn't have a lot to go off of, because unfortunately the game itself, it's very sparse the way that the lore is dropped. A lot of it you don't get to find out until Eileen's with you at Wish House, because Henry can't read for some reason.
What up? I'm 19 and I never learned how to read.
But Eileen can. Feminist king, once again. Or just a dumbass, I don't know. Walter, please don't go on the ring light. Sit with mama. Okay. I'm talking about other Walter. Big Walter. Man Walter. Who the hell is Walter Sullivan? Walter Sullivan is the antagonist of Silent Hill 4. So I'm gonna go chronologically here. Not chronologically to the game, chronologically to his life. He was born into room 302, which is the room that Henry is renting. His parents lived in this apartment when he was born into a situation where his parents were not able to take care of him. His dad did not want to have a child, but his father was abusive to both him and his mother. They end up abandoning him. I don't know if his mother didn't want him or if his mother was coerced by his father to leave him, or if his father did something to his mother that let her, you know, not be alive anymore. The landlord, Mr. Sunderland, who is James Sunderland's father, finds Henry and he takes him to a hospital where he's eventually becomes a ward of the state and is sent to Wish House, which is an orphanage in Silent Hill run by the Order. So that's why, again, when people are like, it's not a Silent Hill game, the Order is literally the cult that's the heart of like 1 and 3. He becomes indoctrinated by the Order and he starts to really believe the teachings because he's a little boy. He doesn't know any better. It's all he's ever known. At this point, when he first starts out at Wish House, he doesn't even really know that much about he doesn't remember that much about his parents. He finds out about his mom from Dahlia from the first game. He accidentally convinces Walter that room 302 is his mom because she says that she's asleep in Ashfield. He takes it because he's like 5 to believe that the room is his mother. So he starts to visit the room alone and he gets punished for leaving Wish House. And in general, he and the other children are physically and mentally abused by the Order. The big thing that this is where I'm getting into, this is my sleepover, so I get to pick the insane Walter Sullivan headcanon. So there's no circumcisions here, baby. So there's a priest at Wish House. And again, I think that this isn't really revealed a ton in the game. I think a lot of it is text that Team Silent had put out just on the side. So there's a priest in the Order named George Roston who teaches Walter the 21 sacraments, which is the ritual that is like the crux of this entire game, because Walter believes that it can bring his mother back. And that's really all he is motivated by, is he wants to bring his mother back. It's said in the lore that George Roston lets Valtiel possess Walter to carry out the 21 sacrament. This is interesting because it's not really ever addressed. And Valtiel is seen in Silent Hill 3 as kind of like he's almost like an ambivalent force. Like, he's not helping Heather, but he's also not harming her. He's a demon, he's a creature. I think this is a really interesting thing that's not expanded upon, and if you treat it like very literally at face value, it's a cop-out. I think it's an excuse to be like, Walter did nothing wrong, and it was all Valtiel. And there was a moment, because I'm such a Walter Sullivan head, where I was like, Walter's innocent, he didn't do anything, like, it's all Valtiel. But I'm semi-media literate, And no, I think that's too much of a cop-out, especially with how, you know, heady these games are. I think that's just too blatant and too obvious. I think this is my circumcision moment. I'm sorry that I keep saying that, but like, you can't talk about Walter Sullivan online and not talk about the circumcision thing. If you guys don't know, the former like admin of the Silent Hill wiki like co-opted the Walter Sullivan page and claimed that the entire game was an allegory for circumcision. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. I'm not here to talk about that. There are so many people online that can tell you about the Walter Sullivan circumcision incident. Anyway, I interpret it that Roston suggested to Walter that Valtiel possessed him, and it was a way to get him to just carry out these horrific murders for this ritual, because he was so mentally damaged and physically damaged. He was just ready he'll do anything for them at this point. So it was very easy for him to actually believe this. And this is something that you see a lot in real life with abusive religious leaders. They'll invoke religious figures to justify what they're doing to their victims, or to manipulate them into either not telling people what's happening to them, or, you know, to get them to do things for them. Typically it's more a way to get them to not tell their parents or another trusted adult. He's kind of using what Walter believes against him, the same way that you could say, you know, a Catholic priest could use Jesus or Mary against a Catholic child. If Walter is actually convinced that Valtiel is responsible, then that may allow him to cope with what he's doing and compartmentalize and blame it on Valtiel and kind of clean his conscience. Because I do think Walter, at his core, like when he was a little boy, I don't think he was malicious. The young Walter that we're presented with even in the game, I don't think he's evil. He just really, he wants his mommy. Like, an adult Walter also just wants his mommy. I think that Valtiel is a cop-out for Walter. I think it's a way for him to justify what he does. And I also think it kind of justifies a sense of superiority he has over normal humans, because he thinks he has this extra thing that his religion has given him that makes him better than, because we'll see that adult and even teen Walter Sullivan has a pretty severe disdain for humanity and for people. So I think this allows him to view himself as separate. He continues to visit the apartment into his teen years, and it's not really elaborated on why. I don't know if he's just not as welcome at Wish House at this point. He has to sleep on the streets because he has no money and no place to go, so he keeps making this journey from Silent Hill to Ashfield to just like sit outside the apartment in hopes that he can get in and see his mom. When he's homeless, kind of bumming around Ashfield as a teen, he first runs into Eileen, who is our female protagonist. She's walking with her mom through Ashfield Station. She sees him sitting there, dirty, cold, and she gives him her doll, which is about the most compassionate thing a young child can do. It's not like she can give him money. It's not like she can help him. So this is pretty much the first time in his entire life that Walter has been shown genuine compassion, because you could argue that Mr. Sunderland, I guess, by taking him to the hospital, showed him compassion, but also I think he was just like, this baby needs to get the hell out of my apartment. I'm not dealing with this mess. I think that while it was like a positive encounter for Walter, I also think seeing a child happy with her mother probably hurt him a little bit. He probably got stung with a little bit of jealousy there, so I think he has very complicated feelings towards Eileen. We'll learn that he has not forgotten about her. He also encounters Cynthia around this time, who is the first victim that Henry meet. I don't want to say he came onto her, because I don't know what Walter Sullivan's game was like when he was, I don't know, 16. I don't think it's ever been good, and I don't think it ever will be. The Silent Hill wiki says there's a chance he had been interested in her for some time, so he finally worked up the courage to go up to her. She kind of brushes it off in a pretty cheeky way. She calls him filthy but handsome. Woo! Knocking down the Virgin Mary. What horrible children I have. We're good. I think that this probably fully put him off expressing any romantic interest towards women. I feel like in general, he gives me very asexual vibes. I think he has a weird sort of admiration for Eileen, but I don't necessarily think it's romantic or sexual. I think it's just that he kind of puts her on a pedestal above other people and maybe even views her in a sort of maternal way. But I think Cynthia finally was like the last straw there. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I love a good Walter and Henry moment on archiveofourown.com. But I really don't think that that's Walter's prerogative. But there is a really good picture of Walter and Henry kissing that someone made that I think about all the time. Anyway, that's all fun. I don't think it's canon. We can all have a little fun with our non-canon boy kissing. Walter fully leaves the order, enrolls in university, but it doesn't last because he starts to really angry, really upset about essentially how the world has treated him, which I can understand. Like, he's pretty much had the worst hand anyone could be dealt, just consistently. He just becomes obsessed with meeting his mom, because I think really at the end of the day, that is the only like pure good person that he views that he has in his life. Obviously, we don't know. She could have fully chosen to abandon him. When he becomes a young adult, he kind of goes into something that a lot of victims of religious cults or just general religious trauma kind of see. He's given a chance to spread his wings outside the cult or the religion, but the cult has rendered him with a complete lack of social skills. He already has this disdain for society, and the trauma, it all prevents him from breaking free. And luckily in real life, you see a lot of victims of religious trauma and religious abuse will get help, and they'll find other people like them or find therapy groups or things like that. And it's a way that, you know, they can kind of heal and learn how to live independently of that religion. But that's just something that a chance Walter was never given. And I think at this point he was probably beyond helping. Even if someone had tried to help him, he probably would have just rejected it. I think he was too far gone at this point. He's probably at this point still clinging on to the whole Valtiel thing. He's fully using that as an excuse to justify his actions and his disdain for society. As much as I do love Walter, like, I think he's a fascinating character, my defense for him kind of ends around here. I think his mind is made up. He wants to do this. He's definitely a very evil individual. I just think he has a very interesting backstory that you can't not talk about when talking about him, and I think that's what makes him so compelling. He drops out of university. By the way, what do we think Walter was studying in university? I've seen a lot of headcanons. I've seen some people say sculpture, which is kind of messed up because I feel like they're just saying that because he like chops up body parts and stuff. So I guess maybe it's because of the like mannequin things, like the mannequin of Cynthia and the mannequin that he's like doing the little hysterectomy to later. I don't know, but I always think that's funny. Just like everyone's like, Henry is a world-class photographer because he's taken photos that he put on his wall. Like, I have a wall full of my own photos. This is a photo I took. I am not a photographer though. Comment below what you think Walter studied in university. I bet it wasn't women's studies. He starts the 21 Sacraments. He kills 10 people. There's no evidence. The crime scene is like completely clean, even though the murders are incredibly gruesome. He takes their heart out and does the whole, they think it's like 0, 1, 1, 2, 1, but it's 1 out of 21 because he has 21 people, 21 sacraments. What's 9 plus 10?
You stupid.
They're not.
What's 9 plus 10?
21.
You stupid.
Exactly. He gets caught after the 9th and 10th victims, which are twin children, who I will get into in a second. He gets caught kind of inexplicably because he's gotten so far with there not really being a ton of evidence. Gets caught, gets put in prison, and he with a spoon, which is like the most brutal way to, oh my god, I don't even like to think about it. That's so horrific. Hello, I'm doing that cliche thing that YouTubers do when they're editing and they say, I forgot to say something. Anyway, I found something relating to Walter and the spoon that, you know, I was just going about how horrific the existence of the spoon in the game is. Well, I found something that's maybe worse. So I saw it. So you have to see it. Enjoy. Oh my god, I don't even like to think about it. That's so horrific. So at this point, this is kind of around when Joseph Schreiber, the man who lived in Henry's apartment before Henry, gets involved. He's mentioned in Silent Hill 3 in like an article that Heather finds at some point. Walter's also mentioned as a serial killer in Silent Hill 2. James comes across an article, and then we even come across like a grave that says Walter Sullivan, and like we're getting really, you know, sticklery about it, which I know you Silent Hill fans like to do. There's 2 different graves for Walter, but the grave site that James visits in 2, I don't think that's real. I think he's drowning in his car a little bit at that point, but that's my canon Silent Hill 2 ending, by the way. Rot James. Joseph thinks that he did not, that it was a fake out, and that the real Walter Sullivan is still alive. So there's 3 iterations of the Walter Sullivan murders, so they think the second one is a copycat. We come to find out that Walter did die. He did kill. He somehow brought his own body back into room 302, and Henry ends up finding it. Right before Walter says, he's trying to kill me. He's trying to punish me, the monster, the red devil. Forgive me, I did it, but it wasn't me. So this all goes back to my whole thing that I think that Volatile is Walter's attempt to compartmentalize his actions as he's about to kill, because he knows he has in order to continue this ritual. It's very similar to like Son of Sam. The dog made me do it. No, it didn't. You killed people. He brings his corpse to room 302, like I said. I don't quite have like a theory in this. I think really at the core of this, it just looks cool as hell. And Silent Hill is, if nothing else, always looking cool as hell. I think that this supports his belief that he is above humanity. He is above his mortal flesh, because his spirit or his ghost or whatever he is able to just kind of shove his meat sack into his mom. Oh, there you go. I didn't even think about that till just now. He's like putting himself back in the womb. Cozy on up, big boy. Get back in there. This is so gross, I'm sorry. Ghost Walter starts killing again so he can finish the ritual and bring mommy back. We're right back. We're at the plot of Silent Hill 4 now. Henry's in the game. He starts seeing all this stuff with Cynthia and Jasper. Something that I find fascinating is Walter's demeanor with Henry and Eileen is almost always calm and collected, like in cutscenes. He's creepy as hell. Like when Henry first comes across him knocking on Eileen's door, he just kind of walks away, and then he tries to give Henry Eileen's doll, which do not take the doll. If you're playing this game for the first time, don't take the doll. It just makes you get more haunted. So just let him have his little doll. He can keep her. We don't need it. It's like a dog or a cat that finds a dead rat and like comes and brings it to you, and then you get sick from the dead rat. So I just think it's interesting that he's always very calm. He speaks very politely to Henry. When Henry first sees him in the hospital, very scary. He's performing a hysterectomy on a woman, a fake woman, a mannequin thing, and he just kind of like lurks. You start doing the like redoing every world with Eileen. He chases after you and laughs, and it's very silly. I'm not gonna lie. I that's why I named my blog Walter Sullivan ha ha ha. Because I think it's neat. I think it's silly. It's very scary though. You hear him open the door in Forest World, and then you start shooting. He just starts shooting you. And throughout this, Walter's younger self makes appearances. And at first, Henry's kind of like, why is this little boy in these horrible situations? But then he realizes, like, this is not a normal little boy. I think that the child Walter is the remaining innocent and moral part of Walter, and he even convinces Walter to let Eileen live. He remembers, you know, she was nice to us. Don't do that. So he's kind of the antithesis of the Valtiel side of Walter. And I think these two parts of him are constantly fighting, and it gets worse as he gets closer to finishing the ritual, because I think that child part of him is almost telling him to just stop, let it go. This isn't gonna work. I know we want to see mom, but like this isn't okay. But at the same time, like you can see that little Walter really wants his mama, so that's also part of it. So I think like that desire he has for his mother is always going to trump any moral reasoning he has left. To finish out just the game, like the narrative of Walter Sullivan, depending on which ending you get, he could be defeated by Henry, or he pulls off the ritual and is reunited with his mother. Basically, he is inside room 302. That's the ending I choose, because I love Walter. I want to talk about some of the victims that he has. You got the ones we talk about, like Cynthia's the one that rejected him, Jasper, which by the way, doing a bit of a Jasper cosplay here. Yeah, I'm on fire, get it? It's not a good joke. I don't have any chocolate milk though.
Oh man, that was awesome.
Jasper was just like a kind of a true crime nerd that wanted to know more about the cult. Like the other guy at the prison roll was one of the guards that was abusing him. And then Eileen, of course, and Henry's just in the apartment. I literally think that's the only reason you chose Henry. I know there's a whole lot of fan fiction that's like they were meant to be and he's the receiver of wisdom. That's all fun and games. I get it, write your fan fiction. I'm never gonna tell someone not to write a fan fiction, but Henry was wrong place, wrong time. Some of his earliest victims are actual priests from the order. This to me shows that Walter, at least by the time that he starts committing the crimes, the murders, that he knows he was abused. He knows it wasn't okay what happened to him, and he truly became to resent the people that brought him up. And I think he still believes in the religion, but he does not believe in them. It just shows what abuse like that can do to a person, and that's why Walter is so fascinating to me, because it's just a tragic portrait of someone who was heavily abused and just never given a chance to get better or to grow as a person. It's a game and I know it's ridiculous and he runs around with a gun and laughs and shoots you, but it's a way to reflect on people in real life who are treated the same way that he's treated. It may not be a crazy panopticon prison, but it's places that people are supposed to feel safe and loved, and they're not, and that's not okay. So I'm off my soapbox now. His final victims before he are twin children. And these are the only two victims in the game who never manifest as ghosts, save for Eileen and Henry, but that's because if they become victims, the game ends. They become monsters called the twin victims, which before I even get into any analysis, probably the scariest monster in the entire Silent Hill franchise. The way that this creature comprised of two essentially baby heads, it looks like, just stands there and then lunges at you, it's terrifying. It's so terrifying. I think it's a genius design. Oh, I love it. The twin victims is my favorite Silent Hill monster. I think that the inclusion of the twin victims is one of the most compelling choices in the game because it illustrates the cycle of abuse that can happen. And again, I don't want anyone to think what I'm saying about Walter is standard for victims of abuse. It's not. He is a fictional character and he is very exaggerated, as fictional characters tend to be. But I think that Walter's transformation of them into a new creature rather than one of the ghosts is him manifesting his guilt over inflicting harm onto a child, because he thinks back to how he felt as a child. And this is the murders that are mentioned in Silent Hill 2, so I do think like that could be a reason why they made a monster into it too, just to like tie it in. But that's, again, we're talking real headcanon moments here, but that's just my interpretation. So I think that he kind of struggles there. I think he thinks that maybe he looks at children the way he looks at his young self as someone he wants to protect, but I think his way of protecting them is unfortunately killing them. Okay, so I'm gonna chill on Walter. That was the bulk of this. I have some final takeaways. I think Eileen's a really interesting character because her presentation is very strange. Like, I don't, they obviously put her in that skimpy little outfit because it was 2004 and that's what you did in video games. But I like it because she's not like really a stereotype damsel in distress. Like, even though she's heavily injured from being attacked by Walter, she is whipping the shit out of the monsters and Walter in the second half of the game. I just found her the chain in my most recent playthrough. She's whipping the hell out of them things. I love when Henry and Eileen like group wail on Walter and then he falls down. I think that's so funny. I know I just spent literally 40 minutes being like, I feel bad for Walter. So in conclusion, I think Silent Hill 4 is open for interpretation. You can interpret it a lot of ways. I think that's what makes it so cool. I just think Walter's a fascinating villain, and Henry has rights and we should respect and love Henry Townsend, because he'll go to the store for you. He'll go. I love Silent Hill. I like and subscribe. Do you say that? I don't think I'm ever gonna make another video. I think this is it. If you want to follow Walter Sullivan at tumblr.com, go for it. I don't post often, but with the new ones coming out, baby, I might just come back. If you do ever want to hear me talk about anything else, tell me. I know it's just my friends watching this, so should I read Silent Hill fanfictions out loud? I'm gonna go get something from the store for you guys.
What the hell?